Welcome to episode 28 of Starbase Flyover Update. We'll cover last week's developments of Starbase from 7th of January through to this week's flyover of the 13th. We'll see trench work at Massey's, more new stands at Sanchez, demolition at the build site, and tank destruction at the launch site. My name is Jeff A, so let's buckle up and enjoy the very first flights of 2024. Alright, let's begin at Massey's structural test site. Special shout out to Procky for creating these labelled maps for all 4 sites at Starbase. Due to the difference in flyover altitude, we won't have a comparison slider this week. This site is a hive of activity, so let's get into it. Starting out at the top half of the site, we can see that slurry wall construction is progressing nicely. The soil stabilisation team is almost complete, including the cured sections being covered with dirt. Steel rebar cages are getting assembled, and digging of the slurry wall itself continues. Our next area of interest is the construction of formwork adjacent to the new subcoolers that appeared a few weeks ago. We can see that the construction of the structure for above ground cryopumps has been completed with both pumps installed. Moving to the left, we can see both methane tanks from Florida have been installed with a vaporizer and auxiliary tank. Moving down, we can see the vaults underneath the tanker access roadway are getting fitted out with plumbing leading from the new ship testing area to the other set of kettle boilers and the tank farm. Shifting to the right, we can see Booster 12 sitting on the cryo stand. It underwent 2 cryogenic proof tests on the 11th and 12th of January. Moving to the ship cryo stand, it now sits vacant. This is because ship 30 was moved back to the production site, removed from the cryo stand and moved to the high bay via the rocket garden in another bout of the Starship Shuffle. Ship 30 underwent 2 cryo tests on the 3rd and 5th of January. Changing focus to the tank farm area, we can see that a set of tank pedestals is under construction. Pilings were spotted in the last flyover on the 7th of January. Formwork has been installed and concrete being poured in the latest flyover. Shifting to the left, we can see the new concrete is being poured next to the LOX tanks. It will be interesting to see what goes here. Our next area of focus is the nose cone jail. You might be asking where the top portion of the structure went. Well, it was scrapped on the 3rd of January, which removes the option to test nose cones within this structure. Nearby, the drilling rig has been busy with this new foundation work, where the can crusher cap used to be. Moving to the building under construction, we can see that the cladding of the building has been completed. This finishes the exterior of the building. It is not currently known what this building is for. Be sure to share your speculation in the comments below. And with that, over to Sanchez. Here's a labelled map by Procky of the site for those unfamiliar with this layout. As you can see, SpaceX is moving forward at a fast rate, so let's take a closer look around. Getting started here at Sanchez, we see SpaceX is building quite the collection of insulated cryopipes near the fabrication building, with fabrication work occurring at the front and rear of the building and a full rack staged on the left-hand side. This could be pipework destined for the launch site orbital tank farm expansion or for the incoming tower sections that will be outfitted here at Sanchez. Over at the stand fabrication lot, work continues to finish fabrication of the second booster transport stand here on the right. Seen either side of the stand are parts and supports for a third. The white ring, built near the centre, is a second ship maintenance stand likely destined for Mega Bay 2, while parts for a third can be seen to the far left. Supports for the third stand can be seen just to the left of the booster stand. Down at the future home of the second orbital launch tower sections, burial of drainage pipes and conduit has begun. SpaceX is gearing up to make this area as accessible and efficient as possible for future work crews. Looking at the lot overall, only 5 sets of footings are still visible for the soon-to-arrive tower sections, but there is more concrete yet to be poured in the dirt lot being prepared by the inventory tent. Plenty of time remains before the sections arrive, with only 1 of the 7 completed sections awaiting transport at the port of Brownsville, with the rest still in Florida. Taking a quick look at the concrete fortress where the new Starlink ground station is located, we see multiple AC units have been installed on the roof, a good sign of what's likely to be placed inside the structure. With electrical and data management systems in place, lots of cool air will be needed to keep the sensitive hardware protected. Before moving over toward the rocket garden, let's shift our focus to the parking and staging lot adjacent to Highway 4. Preparations are underway to turn the sand and gravel lot into a proper parking lot with asphalt. This is a trend that started beyond the build site and has slowly progressed towards Sanchez. After a couple of teases in recent weeks moving back and forth in the rocket garden, S-26 was hooked to the LR-1750 crane and lifted onto the ship engine installation stand on January 11th. It doesn't appear any work to remove engines has occurred, but crews have been spotted adding more stringers to the payload bay section. There are 2 complete rows of external stringers welded to the payload bay of the ship, with a third row only partially installed. We're going to be honest and say we have no idea what's going on with this ship anymore. Sitting in S26's former spot in the garden is the puck-shucking stand that brought S30 back from Massey's in the early hours of January the 10th. Next to the stand is S32, which rolled out of the high bay on January 10th to make way for S30 to move back into the high bay. Up at the new shed and water tank, we can see another concrete pad is being prepared. This pad will rest on piles drilled back in December and is a similar size and shape to the one supporting the water tank above it. In fact, components for a matching tank have already been spotted in the area, so construction can begin once the pad is poured. Based on the red piping connected to the tank and red hardware spotted inside the building, this is likely to support fire suppression systems in the facilities at the build site. Which building specifically, we can't be certain, but this is a requirement for occupancy by work personnel. In this image from January 7th, we can see crews have begun laying what is assumed to be green water pipe in trenches in front of the new shed. In addition, more drain pipe was being laid by the tank as well. Looking forward to January 13th, most of the trenches seen in the week prior have been covered, and in classic SpaceX fashion, the concrete surrounding the trenches is being removed. That's it for Sanchez, so let's catch up on progress at the build site. Please refer to Brocky's map of the various facilities here as we make our way around. We'll begin first with Mega Bay 2, seen here in this top-down shot, where crews are finishing up roof panel installation as well as the glass windows surrounding the top floor. Bed is seen in this ground photo here, shot from the day before. It's also worth mentioning that the LR11000 crane, which was used to lift pre-constructed segments and roof beams onto Mega Bay 2, was laid down on January 4th. Taking to the air again, we can just barely spot Ship 29 atop the engine installation stand on the left of the bay after it was moved here 2 weeks ago. Moving to the left of the same image, we see Mega Bay 1 with Booster 11 in the back right of the bay receiving engines. Rotating further, we see Booster 10 on the booster processing stand receiving attention ahead of its launch. Booster 13 is on the turntable and is yet to be fully stacked, but in a welcome change, B13's forward dome and methane tank sections were finally spotted staged in front of Mega Bay 1. It's been a month since the booster was last stacked, but with the Star Factory's extension becoming operational shortly, we look forward to seeing Super Heavy's production rate increase rapidly. Panning left of the high bay, Ship 28 is front and centre, undergoing launch preparations after rolling back from an engine test campaign at the launch site on the 5th of January. Hiding behind it are S30 and S31. This latest Starship shuffle was after S32 was moved to the rocket garden and S30 and 31 moved in. Are you able to keep track of all the ships as they swap places? It's also worth mentioning that S28's nose cone lifting points were removed last week, meaning that the next time this ship is lifted, it will either be with a new version 2 ship lifting rig seen here in action, or the chopsticks when it will be stacked onto Booster 10 ahead of the IFT-3 launch. A new concrete access driveway has been laid through the centre of the ring yard area, improving access to the back of the site. Before we move on to Star Factory's expansion, on the morning of January 13th, Tent 3 finally fell following 2 days of demolition work. After more than 3 years of reliably producing Starship nose cones, this specially elevated tent was torn down to make way for the final section of the Star Factory. In our flyover conducted the next day, Tent 3 was almost completely removed as grey beams for the Star Factory continued to be raised and roof cladding installed. Viewing the Star Factory from another angle, we see footings have been dug and some poured with concrete in the direction of Highway 4, as well as upwards in the direction of Tent 3. Interestingly, these footings seem to be getting closer to the wall of the existing Star Factory the further right we go, following the curve of Highway 4. Peeking through the Star Factory's doorway in these ground photos, in this new area we can see there are Starship nose cone and barrel sections, including one with tiles. The area this side of the Star Factory has been cleared, leaving only the medical building. One of the demolished buildings was a house well known throughout the rocket community. Lastly, tiny homes have been placed behind the Starlink building. Next up, we'll take a look at the launch site. Here's a labelled map to serve as a reminder of the different areas at the launch site. Let's get started at the newly renovated entrance at the suborbital site. On the left side of the entrance, a window has been added to a cutout in the wall for security personnel sitting inside the small building constructed just on the other side. Up at suborbital pad B, crews have been working hard replacing the base under the stand with Fondag before the next round of ship static fire testing takes place. Pad B is likely here to stay until the ability to perform engine testing at Massey's comes online later this year. Shifting our focus now to the orbital tank farm expansion project, we can see here that 6 of the 9 new tanks are now in position, with the SBMT used to install them staged nearby. Not long after this flyover, even more tanks were spotted. Seen here arriving at the port of Brownsville on Saturday, January 13th, were 2 additional tanks to add to the total at the launch site. Shout out to Nick Lovell for editing this excellent footage of Kirschcam live 24/7. Check out Jessica's link in the description. On January 14th, the first of the 2 tanks made its way to the launch site and was manoeuvred into place atop the next set of pedestals. If we look along the front of the tank farm expansion area, crews have been hard at work to prepare the additional plumbing needed for the additional tanks. Looking just in front of the first 3 new tanks, we can see a platform has been constructed for easy access to the plumbing that will connect the tanks to the pipe racks just on the opposite side. Some pipework can already be seen resting on top of the racks and making the turn towards the pumps, with additional stands still resting on their sides between those already mounted and a supply of cryopipes waiting over to the right of the tanks. There's still a lot of work remaining before these tanks are brought online. Taking a closer look at the methane processing area, some scaffolding remains between the subcoolers to facilitate insulation installation onto the pipework. Let's hope that tank behind the subcoolers gets some attention while they're at it. Over on the lock side, scaffolding remains around the 2 subcoolers in the rear, plus a few of the pump motors. Like the methane side, crews have been busy insulating the newly added pipework. This maze of plumbing, valves and filters has been covered over with this structure that includes hardware for a small bridge crane to be used for future maintenance. Just behind the subcoolers, where the concrete meets the wetlands, crews have removed the protective HESCO barriers previously ravaged by IFT 1 and 2. It'll be interesting to see if more protection returns before the 3rd test flight. Looking now at the OLM, crews are still hard at work around the hold-down clamps inside the ring and also on the top deck near the BQD. Additional burn plates or plates expected to wear and require maintenance can be seen installed on each side of the BQD. This is the location impacted the most by the pad avoidance manoeuvre utilised during IFT2, so it's no surprise reinforcement of the top deck and replacement of clamp components would be required. Taking a look up at the ship QD arm, scaffolding remains in place for inspections and recoating work. One of the newest mysteries at the launch site has to be this small plot of land where a portion of the water tank farm parking lot used to be. Excavation work began the days leading up to IFT2. Fast forward 2 months and walls are about to be constructed around what many believe is a future restroom and break area for employees and contractors. The biggest clue is the presence of PVC plumbing in the concrete pad. It certainly isn't the most interesting arrival to the site by any means, but a necessity for what could be a much busier site in the coming months. Zooming out and looking to the left at the perimeter of the site where it meets the wetlands, work to control erosion is underway with a slope being constructed and concrete poured. We'll end today's episode with a look at the LR11000 crane, which has recently returned to a location inside the launch site after performing some heavy lifting in recent weeks. Sunset on January 5th made quite the backdrop for removal of the ill-fated water tank at the orbital tank farm. This wasn't the only victim, however. Just a day later, the shell of GSE Tank 8, originally planned to be for methane storage before it was converted to a water tank, was cut at the base and removed for scrapping. Seen from a different angle with Lab Padre's lab cam, this tank shell was ready for retirement after the beatings it took from the first 2 launches. The tank underneath, however, was a refreshing sight once exposed for the first time in over 2 years. The tank would later be removed as well on January 9th. Crews worked day and night with torches and heavy equipment to cut up the steel into pieces small enough to be hauled away in dumpsters, with the bulk of the work being completed in just 5 days. One of the last tasks for the crane before moving back into the site was lifting a small excavator equipped with an hydraulic breaker and boom lift seen inside the area formerly occupied by the tanks. The excavator quickly got to work chiselling away at the concrete base of the GSE tank. What's next for this area isn't yet clear, but one theory mentioned by CSI Starbase is it could be host vaporizers to facilitate backfilling of the commodities tanks with gaseous versions of each propellant during loading operations. Multiple deliveries of these vaporizers have occurred in the past few weeks. We'll see if that theory becomes reality in the near future. The LR11000 was lowered just after a flyover on the 13th, as seen here by Lab Padre's Nerdle cam. This lowering is likely for routine maintenance following its recent workout at the tank farm. On the evening of January 12th, Elon Musk held a company talk near the HLS nose cone mock-up at Sanchez to discuss 2023 and also the year ahead. With relation to Starbase, it was mentioned that one tower would be upgraded while launches occurred from the other, further indication of the second tower coming to the launch site soon. A revelation was made about IFT2, with Elon saying a planned LOX vent late in the flight led to a fire and ultimately the destruction of S-25. Looking ahead to Flight 3, it was revealed what the main objectives would be for S-28. An in-flight engine burn using the header tanks in space for deorbit, a PEZ dispenser demonstration, and a tipping point demonstration where propellant is transferred from the header to the main tanks. a likely stepping stone toward future transfer between vehicles. And that's it for episode 28 of Starbase Flyover Update. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV aerial photography, and I hope you all enjoyed the flight. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe for more episodes and content so you don't miss out on new episodes each week. I'm Jeff A, and here at RGV Aerial Photography, the team is looking forward to bringing more updates throughout the new year and hope we'll see you next time from high above Starbase, Texas.